Pete, Kramer says it's overdone. When you talk about, what's happening in the market today relative to that lockdown over in Europe, are we going to have a sell-off like some are now calling for, Pete? Are you concerned about that?
I'm not necessarily concerned, Scott, but I would say that when you look at the markets and the move that we have made over time, and we're near those record highs in terms of certain indices so far. But I got to tell you, we're so close to those that if we pulled back, it wouldn't be shocking by any stretch of the imagination. That being said, I continue to like what we're seeing out of the NASDAQ specifically in terms of we've watched for the last couple of days, actually most of this week, where the Dow for just a couple of different stocks pulling on the Dow significantly to the downside, and yet the NASDAQ's been basically pushing to the upside. So I like what we're seeing there as far as the setup, because I think a lot of the NASDAQ stocks that we were talking about for a really long time, this rotation and this strength that we are seeing. How about these chips? The semiconductors absolutely have been exploding to the upside over the last week or so. And, I know we talk about NVIDIA and some of the big names, but there's been all kinds of participation there as well. So I think that we are looking at a very interesting spot for the markets, and we see that volatility starting to creep back up again, but it can't hold very long, Scott. We were up in the mid-18s earlier today. We're already back down toward the mid-17s as we get into the weekend, get a little closer to the weekend. So I don't know that I'm seeing a lot of folks out there fretting over this with the volatility index trading 17.5.
All right, Kevin O'Leary, what do you think? Kramer says, as I said, it's overdone. I've got Tom Lee, though, of Fundstrat, who's about as bullish as you'll ever find. And he's been right all the way. And now his technical strategist at Fundstrat is saying we may top this week and have a near-term pullback. It's going to be bought, and my year-end everything rally is intact. But at least in the very short term, you could get a pullback. Do you see it that way, too?
I see volatility. I don't see a pullback. There's just too much liquidity in the system. And even this bad news out of Germany and other European countries, I think is temporary as they get more therapeutics and more people inoculated. The backdrop is very constructive. I mean, I'm not as bullish as Tom is. I mean, I think he's calling for 20% more next year on the indexes alone, which I think is, I'm a fan of his. I read all his stuff, but I'm sort of more in the 9, 10, 11 range, which is still spectacular. But it's for primary reasons. I mean, think about, we've got $500 billion new money in the infrastructure bill. It probably starts to hit the market by Q2. So that's a lot of liquidity. You don't know where we're getting on the inflation bill. I don't know if that's going to make it or not. But if they get any part of that done, that's more money than we need. There's no question that will spike inflation. That's other problems, but it still favors equities. It's really hard to see, Judge, how we're going to get a major correction with this much free money sloshing through the system.
Maybe not major. I
just don't see it, so I stay the course.
Maybe not major. Maybe not major. And again, as even Tom Lee says, if you do get a pullback, it's going to be scooped up, because where else you can put your money, number one. Number two, as you said, all the liquidity in the system.